You're listening to Episodes, a podcast from the Cyclic Vomiting Syndrome Association.
Please be aware that the content of this podcast is created for general, informational, and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast.
The opinions, perspectives, and experiences shared by our guests, including medical professionals and scientific researchers, are solely their own and do not necessarily represent the views or official policies of their respective institutions, employers, professional organizations, or any other entities they may be associated with.
Their appearance on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement by the Cyclic Vomiting Syndrome Association.
Furthermore, neither the Cyclic Vomiting Syndrome Association, its board of directors, employees, volunteers, hosts, or anyone associated with this podcast takes responsibilities for any actions or inactions on your part based on the information provided.
We do not endorse or recommend any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned.
Thanks for joining us today on episodes of podcasts by the Cyclic Vomiting Syndrome Association. Each episode, we hope to bring a different CVS perspective or information about CVS that will increase awareness, spark conversations around CVS, and ultimately change the way that cyclic vomiting syndrome is seen and understood. I am your host and president of the Cyclic Vomiting Syndrome Association, Blynda Killian. I'm also a parent and caregiver to a person impacted by CVS. Joining us today, we have Nina Hagen from CVSA Nordic. Nina is the leader and co-founder of CVSA Nordic, established in 2017 to support and advocate for people living with cyclic vomiting syndrome in the Nordic countries. She's a patient advocate with lived experience of CVS and has spent nearly a decade working to increase awareness, understanding, and international collaboration around the condition. Thanks for joining me today, Nina.
Thank you.
I want to kind of talk about, touch on how you ended up getting involved, or really because you worked on founding CVSA Nordic. How did that come about? Can you kind of share a little bit about that with me?
It really started with, well, I was living with CVS myself, and for a very long time I was undiagnosed, and I had this journey where I had to try to figure out everything myself. And back then I didn't have a phrase for burden of illness. That's a phrase I actually learned many years later, reading about adult CVS in a document by David Fleischer. Mm-hmm. But the fact that burden of illness is very heavy in CVS, and the fact that I wasn't able to communicate that with my doctors, that was instrumental on how my mental health was impacted in those years. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the thought of how I suffered all these years, that when I was finally diagnosed, I realized that I need to be part of helping others.
That's a big piece for me, right?
Yeah. It was just, I was thinking about, I had done a lot of work trying to find my way, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I was thinking that there are so many people out there going through everything that I went through. And I thought, I spent so much time online, researching, reading about CVS, trying to figure out what was going on. And when I finally found the answers and had, a big collection of documents, I was thinking, I can't sit on all of this alone. It can't benefit only me, all the work I've done. I think the most important for me was that I didn't want anyone to feel as hopeless as I was feeling when I was at the worst. And if I can explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, please. It's people, I don't think people know enough about how much of a mental health toll this condition takes on you. So talking
Yeah.
about it, there's going to be so many people that relate. So please.
Yeah, I think at the moment, as I said, I didn't know the phrase burden of illness. I didn't know that was a concept. And I honestly thought when I went to the doctors, I thought I communicated to the doctors how bad CVS was. And I've always been a person that, at least in Norwegian, try to be very specific with my language. I try to tell everything exactly as it is. So when I was at the doctor's, I told them exactly how my symptoms was. And I realized now that what they heard was a woman that, even though I was vomiting every week, they also heard that I had short, isolated episodes of vomiting. I'm sure there's a lot of CVS patients that are going to kill me now, but my episodes doesn't last more than 12 hours. So they heard that I was vomiting 12 hours, 1 day a week. But they also heard that, immediately after I was able to drink, I was able to eat. So in their view, this wasn't dangerous, But I thought that by telling them everything, they realized that I need help. And I've always also been someone that doesn't want to take more than my share of resources. So when no doctor suggested treatment, I assumed that it meant that I wasn't supposed to ask for it. I interpreted their silence as, a clinical judgment that this was something I just had to endure. And what I internalized from this, I think, was that if no one is treating my pain, maybe my pain doesn't count.
It's amazing what we take away from those experiences, right?
Yeah.
And it's there's a huge variation in frequency and severity for CVS, right? My son's the other end of the spectrum. Excuse me. My son's the other end of that spectrum, where his episodes minimum are 2 weeks long, and he vomits for the full 2 weeks. So, and what I always like to tell people, because, although I'd be like 12 hours, it's the way it impacts you, right? I'm not, because yours are short, I'm not judging that, right? And that's not even the shortest I've heard. So, it's how it impacts you. And that is something that is still debilitating to live with, to function with. So I'm sorry. I had to jump in there because it is, but we don't realize what people take away from that, where they don't feel like they're good enough to get care, or that anybody cares or anybody matters. We've had this on such a spectrum like, I had a doctor that didn't spend more than 2 minutes with my son after we waited months to get in to see him. He didn't ask him any questions. He came in and he told him he was faking it to take a bucket and go back to school. And that was when he was in 9th grade. And he'd been hiding his vomiting at school since 2nd grade, because he knew if he threw up at school and somebody saw it, they'd send him home. And he would 100% rather be in school than in the hospital and infusion, so no, please tell me, because it's a big impact on you and what you took away. So if you want to continue that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's exactly the point, that it has such a big impact, because even though my episodes are 12 hours long, but the truth is, when I have them, I mean, I had my first episode when I was 32. But from that first episode, I had them absolutely every week for 7 years, you know. So, and having that episode every week for 7 years, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And CVS isn't just episodes of vomiting, it's pain, you know. The pain is excruciating. I have never ever felt pain on that level from anything.
Yeah.
And it's also fear of the next attack. It's the knowledge that it will happen again next week.
That's part of the cycle. That's part of
Yeah,
the cycle, right?
yeah.
Because
And that-
you're anticipating it. You're anticipating the struggle
Yeah.
you're going to have when you have to go seek care. It all ties in.
Yeah. And that cumulative burden, you know, it changes how you experience the episodes as well, because the first few times I had episode, that was, you know, the first time I was just thinking, okay, this is stomach bug, you know. And then it was the next day I was fine. And then the next week, you know, okay, it happened again. And then it happened again. And after a while, I realized, okay, this isn't normal. You know, it keeps happening. And, and you know, my episodes are really stereotypical, as they usually are. You know, so it was the exact same thing every episode. So I realized this isn't just random episodes of vomiting. So, you know, those first, if I had known for a fact that, okay, you're going to have 10 episodes, then I would have coped okay with those 10 episodes. But, you know, when you're on your 30th episode or your 50th or, you know, 3 years in, you start to think that, okay, this is never going to end. And I remember this must have been 3 years in, because I was 32 when it started. And I remember distinctly lying in my bed thinking that I'm 35 years old. I am way too young to be this tired of life. Yeah. And that is just because by then I had lost all hope, because, you know, I'd been to the doctors and they said, okay, this isn't dangerous. You can live with that. So I did cope with it alone. And it wasn't the physical pain. I mean, the physical pain was really devastating, but that's not what hurt me the most. I think what marked me long term was the message that my suffering did not warrant intervention.
That's a huge thing for people to take away from this, right? Is because you're so pushed off. And so just, it's not going to kill you. I hate hearing that statement, because especially when it comes to CVS, because my son almost passed. He ended up in organ failure, you know, so I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. And it also, you know, as a person, I'm not really worried about things. So I can't remember a single moment when I have been worried that there has been something dangerously wrong with me. I have never ever gone to the doctor because I've been afraid that it has been dangerous. So when I finally went to the doctor, it was because this is so painful. It hurts me so much. I can't cope anymore. And by then being brushed up with, okay, it's not dangerous, so you can go home, you know, and not being asked if I needed painkillers, not being asked if I needed anti-nausea medication. Today, I would have asked for it. Back then, I wasn't able to.
You didn't know.
I didn't know. And I was in the state of mind I was then, I didn't know I had the right to ask for it. So, you know, when I was lying there, 35 years old, I think what I felt was completely lack of hope, because my truth at that moment, I know this is wrong, but at that moment, my truth was, there is no help to get. This will never stop. So this is my life forever. And I remember thinking that my grandparents most of them ended up living until they were 90. I was 35, and I was thinking, I am not strong enough to cope with this for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking about it, it's so much pain. It's so dark, the complete lack of hope. I, I didn't know what to do. It was completely dark.
And isolation, because you feel like you're the only one going through this, right? You don't know that other people are and how alone everybody feels. And we go to the doctor anticipating that they know, I mean, we're taught from a very young age, you go to the doctor, they fix you, right?
Yeah. And
And
they're supposed to know what this is.
yes, and you go for help. You're so
Yeah.
desperate for help. You're like, okay, because even with the bad experiences that we've had, and we've had some good ones, we've got some really good ones, but we've had the whole spectrum of really bad ones, completely dismissed. We're still dismissed. Um, you don't know what to fight for, what to ask for, right? That's part of the reason that this is what I do now is
Mm-hmm.
sharing my experiences, sharing what we've been through, sharing what worked for us, or how to advocate for yourself, because you've obviously become quite an advocate for CVS and probably multiple other things because now you've kind of learned that you have to advocate for yourself.
You
So
absolutely have to.
CVS has taught us a lot. My husband jokes, he's like, you argue with everybody. And I'm like, CVS taught me the art of arguing because we've
Yeah.
had to argue with everybody, right? You learn how to navigate, and it's not because it's because you learn along the way.
Yeah.
So but we learned from those dark moments, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just been so overwhelming and so, I can 100% see where your head was at. I have that with migraines. I have very debilitating migraines,
Mm-hmm.
which when you say you can't find your words, and I know you are, also not speaking your language. So that makes it, I don't think I could do that. I was on a podcast with Robin from CVS Nordic, I'm sorry,
The UK.
CVSA UK. Yes, I
Yeah.
apologize. Um, and I was on day 5 of a migraine and I couldn't put my words together, right? Or I couldn't
Yeah.
think of the words I was trying to put out of there because yes, I am a very word-driven person. My kids will say one of my catchphrases is words matter because they
Yeah.
do. Um, and I watched it later going, I stuttered through that whole thing going, ugh,
Yeah.
because my brain isn't wrapping around the words because the migraines are so intense. It
Yeah.
impacts my cognitive function.
It totally does. I have chronic migraines as well. So it you can think of a word and it just doesn't get out, or it just, yeah.
Yeah, I had a very complex migraine that my words came out in what was referred to as word salad.
Yeah.
It all the words come out in the wrong order. You're saying the words,
Yeah.
but they all come out in the wrong order, and that was terrifying,
Oof.
to
Yeah.
do that. So I'm sorry you struggle with both. I hope you're finding some treatment for the migraines because the more we treated my son's migraines, the better his CVS got.
Yeah. I'm actually on new medication for migraines now, and it works perfectly. So
Wonderful.
yeah, that's not a problem anymore.
Good. All right, so I don't know if you want to keep staying in the dark space, but that's really where our drive to make a difference, right? For our countries, for the world, and for really people with CVS comes from, right? Is our personal experiences that drove us to make a difference. And it sounds like really dark for both of us to
Yeah.
be driven to do something. So it sounds like that was kind of your turning point when you were 35 and just going, this is kind of it for me. I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. So at that point, you decided to get all the information you had accumulated And you had to translate a lot of it, am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very labor intensive, and that you had done it for yourself, and then you were driven or motivated to help make a difference for others. So you want to take us on a little bit more of that journey, or you want to kind of talk more about how you were able to come out of that dark place? Because, you know, we all occasionally go back into it, right? That's how we move forward, I guess, or how we propel ourselves forward, probably you and I.
Yeah, I'd like to actually, I like to go into a little bit how I came out of that darkness, because it was, it, it actually didn't happen until I think 3 years later. And I came across a story online about a young woman who had actually chronic migraines. And for her, the burden of illness for her was too heavy for her to carry. Um, and I saw a lot of comments on that, and I expected, I was really surprised how many people in the chronic migraines community that expressed empathy for her and saying that they understood why she had taken that choice. But of course, it was also those comments that, it's so selfish to leave those who loves you behind. Um, and it was a response to one of those comments that made a difference for me, because this person says, it's not that I want to die, it's just that I can't go on living like this. And it was those two small words at the end that made a real difference to me.
Yeah.
Because my initial thought to that was, yes, I want to die. But then I paused, and then I thought that, no, actually, I don't want to die. I just really wish that my life was different. I wish that my life was easier, so that it matched my strength, so that I had strength to cope with my life. And then I thought, but if it would be so selfish of me to decide that I can't go on living because it would hurt those that love me, if I'm selfish doing that, can't I then at least, don't I have the right to ask them to help me making my life a little bit easier? So that was the
Nice.
first time in my life I realized that I have the right to ask for help. And more importantly, I realized that my pain is valid, because I realized that my pain had huge effect on me, because for the first time I realized the burden of illness. I realized that the effect of this pain I was living with had such a great impact on my mental health. And I realized that the fact that it had such an impact on my mental health gave me the right to demand treatment for them. So that was the changing point that took me out of that darkness. And it also gave me the courage to go back to the doctors. This was, I think I was 6 or 7 years into my CVS at this time. So I went to a new doctor.
Perfect.
And I told him my story, and I said, I know that you're going to tell me that this isn't dangerous, but for me it is, because living with this takes me to a very dark place. And he listened to me, and I don't know if he would have listened anyway, because this was a new doctor for me. But I honestly think that he did listen, because for the first time I was able to communicate what it was living with CVS.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so impactful when we get somebody that listens, right? Because there's so many people that we've interacted with, so many physicians, medical professionals that have been just completely dismissive. And then you get the other spectrum where they're like, why can't they do something if they tried this, if they tried that, and there's a spectrum. And that's something I really encourage people, because my son went through 6 or 7 GIs and 3 neurologists before we got somewhere. right?
Yeah,
That is a lot of people. That's
it
not
is.
talking about his pediatrician, his primary care, the infusion center, the ERs, getting care shouldn't be this hard,
No,
right? It really
no,
should.
no, no. And just
So,
getting medication in the first place to treat your episodes at home,
yeah, anti-nausea, right?
Yeah.
Anti-nausea. And, and even with that, so Zofran, although it works for, a lot of people, did not work for my son. We really had to be like, we charted. I made my son chart in the middle of his episodes. I made him chart how many times he threw up and then how many times he threw up while he was on Zofran. And there was not
Yeah.
a big difference. But
No.
the only way we could get somebody to go, well, let's try something else, because there's a lot of options out there,
Hmm.
right? And they work differently for different people. So finding the right one for you is awesome when you can,
Yeah.
right? But there are options out there besides Zofran. And that was something we had to push our doctor to look at for us. And it was only when we took in this physical evidence of, listen, he throws up 40 to 60 times a day, and it only
Yeah.
goes down to 25, 30 when he's on the Zofran. That's still too much.
It's too much.
So it's like we really, and it was only when we took in the physical evidence that somebody did something.
Yeah.
So yeah, so our expertise comes from experience, right?
Yes,
we don't
absolutely.
have we don't have medical degrees, but we have so much lived experience. And
Yeah.
that's why, our voices matter. Talking
Yeah.
about it matters, sharing what we've been through, what we go through, dark or light. We need to talk about it because there's somebody else going through those same hallways
Yes.
with us. So I appreciate that you talk about it. And regardless of how big or little of an impact you have, it can change something for somebody, right?
It can.
So I
And
appreciate
I'm thinking
it.
about, this because I ended up making a website,
Mhm,
and because I didn't have the courage to do it alone, so I reached out to. I think I had met a girl from Finland in one of the CVS Facebook groups,
mhm,
and she had joked about making a Finnish and Norwegian website.
mhm,
And I had also talked to Therese from Sweden a couple of years earlier. So when I started thinking about maybe making a website, I asked Julia from Finland if she wanted to take part of that.
mhm.
And then I reached out to Therese again. And of course, my brain kicked in. I need to have things in the right categories. And a website for Finland, Sweden, and Norway didn't work for me. It
Mhm,
either had to be Scandinavia, which is Norway, Sweden, Denmark,
mhm,
but then Finland would fall on the outside. And Julia was here, so we had to include Finland. So then we also had to include Iceland. So it was the entire Nordic. And Nordic is Scandinavia plus Finland and Iceland.
mhm.
So I had to search the internet again and try to find someone from Denmark and Iceland to join us. And I managed to do that. And so we ended up with CVSA Nordic. So,
Nice.
but, because the thought was really, if I have a website, then the information is out there.
Mhm,
And if we also make the website good, with good information, and easy to access the information they need, then the website is working for us without us having to do the job over and
right.
over and over again. So yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's
and
impressive.
and before I got sick, I was actually educated as a web designer. I never worked as it, but at least I had the education as a web designer. So
Right.
I knew, I could finally use that knowledge for something.
You use
So,
your powers for good.
yeah.
See, and it worked for first of all, I love your website. There's a ton of
Thank you.
information and translating all of that because that's huge, right? People don't realize, when CVSA US was finally able to get just a brochure translation, right? And you've got a multitude of languages, that you're working in. It's amazing that you're
Most of
going
our
through that.
information is in English, to be fair, but we have
Okay.
a little bit in all the languages.
Yeah. So it's amazing because giving people uh, uh, the place to look, right?
Yeah.
When they're not alone, when they are looking.
Hmm.
Because, CVSA gets contacted. We've got global, right? There's always
Hmm.
people from all over the world contacting us for help. Um, we need more of that. We need more translation. We need it in multiple languages so people
Yeah,
can have access because it's not isolated to any one country. This is a global issue. So that was huge. I'm glad you used your powers for good, right? This
yeah,
is it's hard that it's individuals like us, right? Because your group is all volunteer as well, correct?
yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
it's all come from people going, we need to do something about this. And it doesn't take a lot, right? There was one time, my son had a new dentist. I already told this story to Robin, but my son goes in, he's like 16, 17. He needs, teeth pulled, every tooth has a cavity. And it wasn't as
Yeah,
if we weren't seeking dental care. Things were just that bad, right? His mouth was a mess, and nobody talks enough about that. And, when it comes to CVS. And so
no,
the doctor's like, what's going on here? Right. So we had to tell him because he's like, I've only seen, teeth like this, but usually worse with people that have eating disorders.
yeah,
And I said, well, it's not an eating disorder. It is a condition. And I gave him some brochures and we talked about it a little bit. I gave him just, some base information. And he calls me one day and he's like, I need more brochures. He goes, there was somebody else that came into my practice and their teeth were like this. And, so I talked to him about it and he's like, oh, I know what that is. So he's like handing out the brochures. So he ended up probably diagnosing 4 or 5 people just from a conversation and some brochures. Right? It doesn't have to be huge to make a difference for somebody because that was probably the first time any of those people had heard about CVS.
that is amazing.
So it doesn't take a lot, right? So a
That
website's huge.
yeah, yeah, uh,
Hmm.
yeah, and also um, I know that my doctor, the doctor I eventually ended up with and have had for the last 15 years. I came to her right after I had gotten the official diagnosis. Um, and she did, of course, didn't know anything about CVS. But I brought information for her and she read the information. And a few years later, she actually told me that, she said, I think I might have another patient with CVS, and I would never have known that had it not been for you.
Hmm.
And it's just, yeah, it helps, giving the information and pushing the information.
Yes, I'm
So,
pushing it. Yes, that it's very true. That is, that was really how my son ended up getting diagnosed. I'm not promoting Dr. Google, but we had Googled it. I literally Googled, why won't my kid stop vomiting
mhm,
in the middle of the night, after I had my 10-minute cry, because that was what I did. It's, I would let myself have the few minutes to just, gosh, it's so stressful and so hard to go through. And I'd be like, all right, now what do I do? So I literally Googled, why won't my kid stop vomiting? And CVSA popped up, right? And so I went and I was looking because it was just talking about the vomiting. And I
yeah,
saw the brochure and was just like, unrecognized vomiting, right? Um, and it was life changing. And I printed everything out and I took it to his doctor and like, could this be it? And he's like, the doctor was going, I've never heard of this, which is it's something we still run into, 10 years
Yeah,
later, it's still the same thing. But, he looked at it and, it took us another 2 years before he was finally diagnosed. But, I always tell people I knew 2 years before he was diagnosed what he had, right? Because
yeah,
of some stuff I found online. Um, and I still hear that from a lot of people. They're looking for diagnoses. So having, the resources, the stuff on the website, that's, it's life changing. It's giving people access to this information, right? That they can go out and look and go, or take the pamphlets or treatment guidelines, right? The treatment guidelines to take to their doctor to go, even if you don't know about it, here's a step-by-step plan on how you
yeah,
diagnose and treat it. Um, so life changing, the just having the access. So still, I appreciate even if it's just the website because it's giving people the information. People are looking for it, and the more it's out there, the more people are going to see it. So
yeah.
let's
And
go ahead.
yeah, it really helps. I mean, uh, we haven't covered this, and that's okay. But I ended up down the line being referred to a hospital, and after I figured out everything with mitochondria and everything, I was referred to a hospital that deals with mitochondria. Um, and the doctor I met there, he said he had never heard of CVS before, but he was willing to read about it. And for the next years, I'm being I have an appointment there every year. So on the second year, he had actually read about it and knew quite a bit about it. And on the third year, he said, "Okay, I can actually." He said, "You can put on your website that I can take CVS patients from Oslo and the area around Oslo."
Nice.
So for the first time, we actually had a doctor that is willing to take CVS patients,
Mm-hmm.
And the last time I was had an appointment with him, he said that he is actually getting quite a few new patients from my web page. And I have never heard of them. They don't contact me, but he is telling me that people see our website and being referred to him. So
Nice.
the website helps
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely. It's life changing, and having the knowledgeable doctors, right? Even if it just takes them being willing to learn, right? Because they're learning right along with you. And, to me, that's fine because you're looking at it. You're
Yeah,
looking at it, you're learning about it, and you're willing to learn about it,
absolutely.
which is huge. It's,
Yeah,
go ahead, learn right along with us. We did that. We ended up doing that with my son's PCP because his pediatrician um, put him in the hospital, went on vacation, and left no orders for him to be treated at all. They didn't leave anything. The nurses came in, they're like, "What are we doing?" I'm like,
yeah.
"Shouldn't you guys know that?"
Hmm.
Right? So, yeah, it was unbelievable. He'd been uh I think that episode he'd actually been vomiting for 5 weeks straight when
Oh,
we really had to fight to get him in the hospital.
yeah,
Like I literally camped out in the pediatrician's parking lot and went, I'm not leaving until somebody does something. Right. I'm like, it's been 5 weeks. He's losing weight. It's like, and we'd been to emergency and they just, they'd give him some fluids and push him out. A kid, where it's like you couldn't stop the vomiting. So finally, camped out in the doctor's parking lot and to the point where he finally put him in the hospital. And I was so distraught. I was so excited that they were finally putting him in the hospital. But as they're getting him admitted, the nurse starts yelling at me. And I mean, yelling at me because he's so dehydrated, they can't get the IV in. There's just no veins. He's just so dehydrated. And I just lost it because it's like I had been fighting so hard to get him care, and somebody's yelling at me for not being a good parent.
he's been vomiting for 5 weeks. You
Five
tried to get
weeks.
him treatment, and uh, of course he's dehydrated.
Yeah. Yeah, I was absolutely blown away, and boy did I
Yeah,
light into her. I was so upset because I'm like, you don't know what we'd been through to try and even get here.
yeah,
I'm like, he's vomiting. There's nothing left in his system and he's still just vomiting. And, it was unbelievable to me that, somebody could just yell at you for something you had already been fighting so hard for.
Yeah. And unfortunately, your story is not even, we hear that kind of story all the time.
All the time. Mm-hmm. And this comes right back to, we shouldn't have to fight this hard for care, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we do. I feel like, CVS taught me the art of arguing. I fought with everybody.
Yeah.
Whether it was the insurance company, the hospital, I'm like his school, because while we were going through all of that, we were fighting the school too, because he was not well enough to be able to be in school, and the school wouldn't help you because you're not in school. So, there was so much so.
It's definitely more than vomiting,
Yes.
living with this condition.
Yeah. Well, and we don't realize. So one of the things that I always talk to my son about, because even now that he's more managed now, he's 27, so he was diagnosed when he was 13, so it's been going on for quite a while. And no, it didn't magically go away when he turned an adult. And that definitely needs more research, right? Because you've got pediatric onset, adult onset. My son's just continued. It's been going on the whole time. It's still a struggle for him, but with the everyday managing, because I don't know if you think about this, but I think about it all the time. Every day, even with him being managed, there's still accommodations that we make every single day just to be able to function. Right? We talk about traveling because he does do a lot of work with CVSA. He does a lot of medical outreach. He does, he's very much in the background. He's this, again, this podcast came about because of kind of the two of us. He's very driven to make a difference. But it's when we travel, there's a process that we start like 3 days before we travel to be able to make it so he can travel, right? So even now that things are managed, CVS still impacts us every day. Do you find this?
Yeah, it's I'm lucky that my CVS is really good now. But still, even though I haven't really had a full-blown episode for years since I started the Mitre cocktail, I can't go anywhere without Saffron, because in case I should get an episode. And I've been on disability for oh my god, I'm getting old, so I've been on disability for more than 30 years now. And that doesn't really pay much. So of course, if I have to travel, I haven't had money to buy the really expensive plane tickets. But I could never buy the really cheap morning tickets, because I always had to buy tickets for a plane pretty late in the evening in case I woke up with CVS, so that I had time to stop the vomiting until I was going to the plane, So I always had to buy more expensive tickets, for instance, And it's just, I never walk after the door without a lot of medication. And it's just, you always think about it.
It's our tool bag. I bought a new vehicle in 2019. First new car I've ever bought, right? Which was also the same year that we paid off my son's first hospital bill.
Yeah.
His very first hospital bill. So bought a new car in 2019, and the sales guy was showing us, hey, if you pull up these mats in the back, there's buckets built into the floor. And I went, sold. This car's for us. It's got built-in vomit buckets.
I actually, when I bought my first house years ago, long before I was diagnosed, I got my first episode when I was pregnant, and we moved into this house when my daughter was exactly 1 year old. So yeah, and the reason why I was sold on that house was because the showers was built so that I could actually lie down on the floor in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only way I could get any rest during the episode was lying on the floor in the shower and having scalding hot water running across my belly, so hot that I got blood lesions on my belly every time,
Mm-hmm.
And if I did that, I could maybe get like 30 minutes sleep.
Yeah.
So I bought a house for the shower.
For the shower.
It was a lousy house, but the shower was good.
See, it's amazing what it does, right? Because these are long-term things. So I can imagine we have everyone in our family carries something, right? All the time. We have vomit bags in the car. At one point we had buckets. I got out of a red light ticket.
Yeah.
I didn't stop because my son had one of those big bins from the hospital and he was vomiting and I couldn't stop in time for the red light because it's like you come over the hill or something and there was a light. So you couldn't even see it coming over the hill. And you can see me try. I watched the video with the judge.
Mm-hmm.
You can see me try. I am stepping on the brakes. I'm trying to, but he's got a bucket full of vomit. And it's, every time I push the brakes, it's sloshing.
I can't even. Oh my God.
And I'm like, so I'm like looking at my son going, we had actually just been discharged from the hospital. I couldn't traumatize him more by stopping so abruptly that he ended up with this bucket on him. So I was very safe. You can see me, I'm looking at all the directions and I'm like, I just went through the light.
It's worth the money for that ticket.
I went to court, because it's like, and I'm going, I had my son's medical records that showed we just been discharged from the hospital. And I go and I'm like, I'm prepared to argue. And, I think the judge just looked at it and was like, nope. So I got out of a red light ticket. Not that I'm promoting running red lights. I was very, very safe about it. But I wasn't going to traumatize my kid more with that. But yeah, we have those. We have bins. We have bags. I carry Ziploc bags to put anything in. Amazon has emesis bags that actually turns the liquids to gel. Because
I have those because I couldn't buy them in Norway, but I had a friend in the US, and so I asked her to buy them for me and send them to me. And she said afterwards, when I was in the post office to send this, and the woman sitting, in the post office, she just looked at it and said, "Does it say vomit bags?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm sending." I still have them.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm just like, you have one bad person, Stinson. So yeah, everybody's got medication. Everybody's, got every little thing that we can use, to try and get through an episode, whether it's peppermint to ginger, the vomit bags, whatever. So it's like, again, it's like you don't realize how much you alter what you do each day because of how much it impacts you, even when things are under control.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, so you talked about being dismissed a lot. You took it took a while for you to be able to kind of stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself, and go, no, this needs to change. Do you have ways that you tell people, no, you need to advocate for yourself a little more, right? Push, ask. Do you have a specific phrase or approach that you kind of recommend people to get a deeper look?
I don't know if I have. I don't know if I actually am able to tell people to push more because I'm still not a pushy person myself. But what I'm keep telling people is that make sure that you bring quality literature. That don't come with some text from Wikipedia. We talked about Googling it, and how much doctors love those
that.
patients who keep Googling. And I talked to my doctor about this actually, because I came with yet another study for something, and I gave it to her, and I said, you know me, sorry, I always come with stuff. And she said, it's okay. You can do it because you always come with quality information. What
Right.
I do is I always, if I read something in an article or something, I always uh, look until I can find a study behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to the study, and often I have to buy the study, go to these medical databases and I buy the studies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the study that I bring to the doctor. I don't bring just text from some article or something. I always
Right.
go back to the research and the study, and I bring that to the doctor. And at least that has helped me, that the doctors listen to me when I do
Mm-hmm.
that, because I don't come with, random text. So whenever I talk to people, when I say you have to go to the doctor, you have to inform the doctor, but make sure you bring the real thing. I recommend them often bringing the treatment guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the empiric guidelines were what saved me back in the
Right.
days.
Mm-hmm.
But also now, and something I'm planning to do now on our website is that I'm implementing links to all kinds of articles.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when they follow the links, they will come to a payment wall, but
Right.
at least we can point them in the right direction where they can get the information, and then it's their choice if they want to buy it. At
Right.
least we can give them uh, tell them where they can find the good information that they can bring to the doctors.
We've been wanting
Because
to do that for so long, to get the links on the website, right? Because there's
yeah,
so much and there's so many articles that come out. I don't know. You guys get the CVSA newsletter, right? Because
yes,
those, we keep putting the new articles that we see coming through in those. Um, and that's one of the reasons why we've made sure the treatment guidelines were published open access, right? Is so people
yes,
didn't have that paywall. So it
yeah,
made it accessible for people to be able to go and, print it out, take it to their doctor, just going, can you consider this? Because a lot of times, we talk about words matter, right? You're
yeah,
not going, hey, I found this. It's like, would this be appropriate? And that is
mhm,
one of the struggles in CVS, because there's no medication, any one medication that is specific for CVS, right? Everything is
exactly,
used off label, which makes it even more challenging. Then a lot of the stuff that is being used is just known by the people that are treating it the most, the CVS experts, that this works, right? There's so many options out there. There's a week-long version of a Prepitent, right? The Amend.
hmm,
There's actually a week-long version of that. How nice would that be, that you only had to have that once a week instead of
yeah,
taking it every 24 hours, right? That would be amazing.
hmm,
There's a lot of stuff out there, but even with Amend or a Prepitent, when the guidelines, especially the newer pediatric guidelines, were being developed, there wasn't any studies on a Prepitent. That's part of the problem with the treatment guidelines, is there's not a lot of resources, a lot of clinical trials or studies done specifically for them. And that is what makes it very hard for people to have that, which is why we have the treatment guidelines, is
yes,
so that there has been a review of the literature, what works, what doesn't, and you have the experts that are advising the treatment guidelines. We don't know, it's like you can say this works. We know it works because we use it all the time, but there's no research to support it.
hmm,
So, going through that process, I was involved with the adult treatment guidelines, and the pediatric guidelines. And it's remarkable to see the amount of effort and research that goes into some of that stuff. So, seeing, maybe that's something we should collaborate on, because we keep talking about it, getting all of the links, getting all of, having that all accessible. But yes, then people do come back and go, it's behind a paywall. Well, it's,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Some of them are open access for a time and then they go
Hmm.
away, right? Those are all
Yeah.
things that happen in the background anyway. We don't have any control over that. But when we see them, and sometimes even just having the snippet, why we did it, here's the conclusion. That's
Hmm.
most what researchers and, well, I shouldn't say researchers, medical professionals look at anyway, is
Yeah.
here's the aim, here's what came out of it. That can be enough. But yes, that was the same thing we did. So I, take these studies, if you see them, to your doctor and go, how about this medication? Because you haven't heard about it. It's an anti-nausea. You hear it's working for a lot of people. Is this something we could try? Right. So, I appreciate the words, but it is hard to, you're not trying to advise the doctor, you're asking questions. And I think that to me is kind of more of an approach. Um, but a lot of times it really varies with the doctor.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've had that, we've had that, and finding somebody who is interested and willing to look and open to, what you're bringing is really the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So do you want to talk about some of the resources that you have on the website?
Yeah, we are actually relaunching the website now. For quite a few years, I feel that we kind of it was a hit and miss on what we were doing there, because when we started the organization, we needed to register the organization, and then for it to be an organization, we needed to have members, and to have members, we needed member pages, and that needed plugins that cost a lot of money, and suddenly everything turned into to be trying to fund the website instead of focus on giving information. So we decided, I think about a year ago, that we do not have members anymore. We closed all of that down. And we decided just to fund the website ourselves. So we are not only working voluntarily, we actually pay to work. And but we can now focus on just giving information. And because we don't need to have member pages and everything, I could just rebuild the website. So we are now trying to just focus on having a website that gives really good information, and where it should be easy to find the information. And as I said, with links to articles, I'm working on those. And also, I've been looking at your website to try to get ideas, and I saw that you have that people can download a zip folder with some information for new patients. I'm totally stealing that one. That's one thing I'm going to implement.
And I'm looking at revamping it. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I think just getting back to giving information, giving awareness, and just making it as easy as possible for people to find the information. And you talked about the treatment guidelines that you have been involved with. And this doctor that I have, that now treats CVS patients, he asked me to put those treatments guidelines on the website, because he said he is willing to. He asked me also to put on the website that doctors could confer with him if they had patients with CVS. And he said, but also put the treatment guidelines on your website so that doctors can find them.
Right.
So they're being used in Norway.
It's huge. It's talking, because we do a lot of medical outreach and I go to a lot of those as well, because, I'm an unpaid volunteer and I do a
Yeah.
lot. I think it is going to some of these medical places. People are like, oh, I have your website bookmarked. And it made me realize that we really need to kind of expand what we have for medical professionals. So I'm sure every time you go look at our website, it's different. We're changing it all the time. Our volunteer
Same
web
with mine.
person, is doing some amazing work. I love all the drop downs. I love that, we have a lot of the
Mhm.
printables and stuff out there. So yeah, feel free to steal the idea. That's where a lot of my stuff comes from, is a lot of
Yeah.
other groups that I'm involved with for my personal stuff. Um, for me, it's gathering, information, knowledge, and, kind of seeing what other people are doing. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of work to be done. I do want to update a lot with the website. Um, I'd love to have more help, as I'm sure you would, right, on that, because it's helpful to know what people need. With
Mhm.
the adult treatment guidelines, we really wanted to have more adult resources, adult CVS resources, and and have that. But then we started getting contacted by a lot of schools and school nurses that wanted more information on CVS, so we had to go that direction for a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we just want to keep building those resources, and we did the same thing, right? I think you guys did the no members shortly after we did, because
Yeah.
it was, for me, I'm sitting there going, that I felt like was a big hurdle for me, because even when I found out about CVSA and trying to get the membership, we couldn't afford it. We were paying so much for medical bills that
Yeah.
even a reduced, a reduced amount was challenging for us to come up with.
Mhm.
Um, so I felt like there was a lot of information that was behind a paywall,
Yeah.
and, I wasn't I didn't like that idea, because it really should just be out there and available for everybody. But what people didn't realize is that the money that was coming in for those memberships was making it so we could do things like the website and brochures and, all of the stuff we do, because
Exactly.
I mean, this is a huge thing, and that's why I tell people, it's, you want to make a difference, you get involved, right? If you want to suggest things that you want to see, don't just suggest it. Bring it to us, help us develop it, right? Make it available. So, I love that that was kind of how CVSA Nordic came about, was people going, "Hey, we need these." Because that's something that's, very near and dear to my heart, because it's like, I
Mhm.
want the information to be accessible to anybody who's coming across it. So, we love volunteers, because all of us are, and all of us are impacted by CVS in one way or another. We have patients, we have family. So it's, CVS is not easy, but trying to do what our organizations are doing while
Yeah.
impacted by CVS
And
is amazing.
everyone working there is impacted by it, either by being a patient themselves or having kids with CVS. I don't think we have had a single board meeting where everyone has been able to be present, because there's always CVS happening. So yeah, just
Yeah,
nature of the beast.
it is.
So yeah.
But where, we appreciate people that are driven enough to, even though, CVS is a hurdle, we're still doing something to make a difference. And,
Yes.
like we talk about, it doesn't have to be a lot. We're not asking you to, for a time commitment. Um, $5, right? Help
Mhm.
with the website, help with, whatever. It doesn't take a lot. We're not asking for a lot. We're
No.
all in the same boat as everybody else. So, yeah, that's, kind of my thing is, talking to Robin and to you guys. It really is. This is a labor of love for all of us.
It
Passion
is.
projects, and, if you have that same kind of drive, we all need volunteers.
Yeah, and it's just, I've been my comfort have been that, the alternative wasn't that I do it or someone else does it, because no one else did it. So okay, I have to do just the best I can, and that's better than nothing. So and for a few years now, I haven't been able to do almost anything for a few years for different reasons. But um, so the CVSA Nordic has really been lacking, and it has been floating thanks to Therese. She's an angel.
Mhm.
I'm back now and I can put in more work finally. But it's at least the website has been there, and it's better than nothing. And then we can Yeah, I'm going to do more work now, and we can get a website better. But it's just the alternative is that there is nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, it only takes a handful of people, right? Because that's what it
yeah,
is that we're doing. We're operating with a handful of people,
yeah,
people that are driven and motivated. And it doesn't, I mean, there's a lot of us that put a lot into it, but it's our personal choice to do that, right? So I appreciate that. I really hope that people do kind of, see this or see that we're all people impacted by CVS, and we're still doing what we can to help others.
yeah.
Um, so March 5th is coming up. I know you guys don't do as much awareness push for Awareness Day, but it is one day where it doesn't take a lot to do, right?
Mhm.
Like, our house, we have some rope lights. We just changed the color to blue, right?
Yeah.
Our neighbors all know about it because we've talked to all of our neighbors about it, right? Sometimes that's all it takes.
Mhm.
Because people go, oh, I have a friend that throws up all the time, so we'll talk to him about it. Here's a brochure.
Yeah.
It's wear a shirt, wear blue, light
Yeah.
your garden up blue, your house blue. I have a, blue ribbon I put on my vehicle that I drive around with that lights up. It doesn't take a lot, but
No. This year, the new thing I'm doing this year is that I have got a new cricket machine. So I have made those templates for CVS awareness ribbons that I'm going to post on our website now, so people can
nice.
print out their own awareness stickers if they want. So I'm going
Nice.
to send it to you, and you can put it out
Perfect. Is that
as well.
the SVG file? Because I have a silhouette, so I do the same thing. I've made my own shirts.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah,
Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate it. We can put it on the website as well
yeah,
so people can see it. So I appreciate that. Thank
yeah.
you so much. All right, so let's see. As we wrap up today's episodes, we did talk about March 5th. Get involved, you guys. It doesn't take a
Yeah.
lot. However, if you just want to hand out brochures, we have them printable on the websites. So, get involved, say something, share your story, right? Somebody out there could see it. But be that ripple in your community, whether it's a blue light in the window, sharing an educational video, YouTube video. We have YouTube links as well, or hand out a brochure. It's perfect. But, we provide some of the tools and resources. You provide your voice. But contact cvsaonline.org or cvsnordic.net to find your one action. Before we go, and we have one kind of thing that I feel like we're going to capture a couple of different ways that people think about CVS. And I think already I'm seeing a big divide in the medical professionals we've talked to and the patients and their descriptions of CVS. So if you had one word that you could use to describe CVS, what would it be and why?
Oh my God.
Think about it for a minute because there's so many
Yeah.
different ways you can go with this. So it's yeah.
I have too many thoughts about what CVS is. I think it's just the only word really that captures everything is it's awful. It's because it completely takes you over, and yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, right? To put it into
Mhm.
one word. You really can't do that because it is so overwhelming, right? You're
Yeah,
right. It takes over everything. And, I think we've kind of touched on that a little bit where it impacts your whole life. Um, I will, quick thing here is because I didn't know what CVS was when, my son was eventually diagnosed with it. Um, our problems with school. my daughter was going to college for early childhood education, and she decided to specialize in 504s and IEPs, special education, because of the struggles that we had with getting
Yeah.
my son an education, right? So she wanted to do something to make a difference. So she changed her major to support that, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing this like more than full time. It impacted all of us, right?
Yeah.
And it was, my son calls it life altering. It really was. It really is. It still is. So I appreciate
Life
that.
altering. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, life altering, which is
Hmm.
talk about your quality of life, and CVS altered the entire
Yeah.
thing. So, all right. Well, do you have anything else you want to touch on before we kind of wrap up today?
No, I think we touched most of it.
Most of it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. I know it's not always easy to talk about. There's been times that I've broken down on some of these, and I'm sure as my son and I get going and doing some more where we talk about our personal stories, it's gonna get tough. I get weepy.
Mhm.
I get weepy.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about. It's hard to share our stories, but I feel like the more that we do that, right, people are going to understand. It's going to make it recognizable, right?
Mhm.
People aren't going to feel so stigmatized um, on what they're going through, because there are others going through that, and we're talking about it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you talking with us today, and thank you so much for what you do. I hope, if nothing else, we get a couple more people that are hoping to contribute to, helping maintain the website, or, give us some suggestions. We'd really like it more if you wanted to get involved and help us develop some of the resources you would like to see. Because we're all volunteers, and we're all, trying to do this, do it, making the pushes that we're doing, the medical outreach, the clinical guidelines, you know, f- um, funding research. There's so much that you can be involved with, be and help with. It doesn't take a lot. We're hoping everybody will consider that, because we are all impacted by CVS. So thank you so much, Nina.
Thank you.
And yeah, CVSA Nordic.net, if you guys want to connect with Nina. Thank you so much.
We're here to amplify CVS perspectives, spark meaningful conversations, and help change the way cyclic vomiting syndrome is seen and understood. Don't forget to like, follow, share, check out resources on the CVSA website, and keep conversations about CVS going.